There's a less known suburb in the greater Houston metro that has some of the best schools, some of the best neighborhoods, and best amenities, but doesn't get the same love as a Katy, a Sugarland, or a Pearland in the greater Houston metro. It's been getting a lot of love on my channel, and I want you to know about it. In fact, even if you are looking on some of the most popular neighborhood ranking sites in the greater Houston metro, it doesn't even show up unless you know the exact zip codes to check for. If you haven't figured it out yet, I'm talking about Cypress, Texas, and I think that you should know about it. If that sounds like something that you're interested in, stay tuned. Hi, my name is Aaron, and every week I'm helping buyers relocate to and throughout the greater city of Houston and the surrounding suburbs. So if you need to know anything about where to eat, sleep, live, play, hit me up morning, noon, or night. I'm your guy. If this is not your first time here, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the comment section down below, and let me know where you're watching this video from. It really encourages me to keep doing content just like this for you. Have you heard of Cypress, Texas? Is it on the top of your list? Is it now from the bottom of your list to the top of your list after you see this video? That's my hope. And let's hop right back into the video. So today, folks, this video is all about Cypress, and we're going to go in depth. We're going to talk about everything that you care about. We're going to talk about neighborhoods. We're going to talk about flooding. We're going to talk about schools, the pricing, everything that you care about in a community to make it your own and call it your home. We're going to go in depth. I'm not going to leave anything in back. I'm going to give you my true and honest feelings about Cypress and why it's one of my favorite locations. So let's hop right into it. And the first point on the agenda today is, where the hell is Cypress, Texas? Cypress, Texas is in northwest Houston. And so from a location standpoint, it's about 30 to 35 miles away from downtown Houston. It's along the 290 corridor, and it is now with the birth of some of these bigger communities like your Bridgelands and your other communities that are in this part of Cypress that's now moving a little bit further west past 99. Cypress is stretched over into 99 and butts up against some of the parts of Katy. So over here, there's a couple communities like Ellison is on this side that touches right up against the west side of Bridgeland. And so as of right now, it goes into some parts that are heading towards Klein and Tomball. It almost butts up against some parts of Hockley, and it is nestled up against some parts of Katy in this like 99 to 290 corridor. As far as it being kind of close to other suburbs, those are the ones that are the closest to it. Right up in this little area of Houston, it kind of butts up right up against on the east side of it to the edge of Copperfield, which is another kind of popular community in this part of the world. Jersey Village is not too far from it as well. But for the most part, it's one of the closer suburbs to the greater Houston metro. When you get distance for distance, is right up there with Humble's probably the closest. Pearland, I believe, is the second closest. And then once you kind of get outside of those two, pretty much all of these are in line with that like 35 to 40-ish kind of miles away from the greater city of downtown Houston. And so from a location standpoint, Cypress is not super far off. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's such a popular one for those that really know about Cypress. They know it's not super far away. 290 is usually not that crazy on traffic. In my experience, I've definitely heard some horror stories, but it is way better than my experience has ever been with Katy. So that's where Cypress is. If you don't know, now you know. But I wouldn't be giving you the real like you expect from this channel if I didn't tell you some of the potential cons about being in that community. And so when it comes to the greater Cypress area, unlike some of our other suburbs, Cypress isn't a straight shot. And so because of that, if you have a lifestyle that brings you inside of Houston, although it is a distance for distance is one of the closer suburbs, you have like interchanges that you have to make to get to the city. Whereas in a spring, you don't have that. You got a straight shot 45 that's going to bring you right down to the heart of the city. In Humble, you got 59 that's going to bring you right down to the heart of the city. In Pearland, especially on the new Pearland side, you got the 288 that's going to bring you right through the heart of the city. Same thing with Sugarland, heart of the city. Katy, 10, heart of the city. And so this is one of those suburbs that even though distance wise it's not awful, you have to get on the 610 loop to basically do anything, or you have to get to the 610 loop to do the 45 to get down into the city. And that's going to add that extra like 15 or so minutes that you wouldn't expect, where Humble might just take you a straight up, like 35-45 minutes. You might be creeping into that 45 to closer to an hour kind of vibe, just because you have an interchange that other people don't have on their commute. And so that's definitely something to keep in mind if you're looking at Cypress seriously for a location, to plan for a little bit more traffic. Now, I will say I don't think it's as bad. Nothing is as bad, in my opinion, in my experience, as living in Katy or out in that Katy area. I used to live in the Energy Corridor, which is like right up in here, and it used to take me like an hour and a half to get in and out of the city of Houston more times than not. And if there's a wreck, I'd be in traffic for close to 2 hours trying to drive the Katy route. It's not going to be that bad in my experiences of going out there and touring during rush hour traffic and all that stuff, but it does take a little bit longer than you would expect, because there are some interstates that you have to hit to get out that way or to get into the city that you wouldn't have to do for other suburbs. Up next on the agenda, things to do. What can we do in Cypress, Texas? Cypress, Texas actually has a lot to do because of the location that it's in. It has easy access in and out of Cypress to neighboring suburbs, as well as into the city. But in Cypress as a whole, there's just a lot to do. Over the last 15 to 20 years or so, there's been a lot of development. There's been a lot of master plan communities that have popped up in that greater Cypress area. And all of those communities have developed their own commercial, their own restaurants, their own things to do. So if you need to go to a movie theater, you got it. If you need to go to the grocery store, you got it. If you need to go shopping, you got the premium outlet mall just around the corner from you. There's a lot to do in Cypress, Texas. So when it comes to things to do, you're not going to really want for much out in the Cypress area. Now, it is a suburb. And so are you going to get these very niche restaurants or unique things to really do? I would say not quite. Houston is very diverse, and so Houston can kind of give you those extra spices of things that you're going to see that's going to be different from the norm. When you get out to some of the suburbs like a Cypress, it's going to be a little bit more chainy. So some of the restaurants that you're going to see, you would probably see also in Katy, Spring, Humble, Pearland, Sugarland. You would see those same kind of things out in the area. The one thing that those other areas don't have is that the communities that have come out are some of the most well known. So you'll have like a Bridgeland that has over 1,000 acres of like lakes and walking trails, and you'll have a town lake where you can actually literally ride your boat up to a dock and then have dinner. You just don't have that kind of amenity that is open to the general public, but specifically gives a certain vibe to those that are living in the greater Cypress community. So there's a ton of things to do. Me and my wife are probably out there way too damn much to say that we don't live in Cypress out there, the premium outlet mall. Not right now because it's hot as hell, but when it cools off and it's in that fall time, we really have a problem out there in Cypress. So definitely going to have a ton to do. You're not going to really want for much. Not going to be super unique and super niche like you would see in the city and like, for example, in the Heights. You're not going to see these cool little neat bungalows where you can go shopping and have a little eatery and get a little coffee and be a little bar. You're not going to see that kind of stuff. You're going to see more chain things, but you will always have something to do in Cypress. But let's dive on into the map so I can show you what I mean. So when it comes to living in the greater Cypress area, just there's so many parks, right? So there's parks kind of all over. There's restaurants all over. All of these are premium neighborhoods that are just a little bit older. When you get to the south side of 290, but I don't know why people call this west of 290. This is clearly north and south. But when you get south of 290, this is where some of the more current heavy hitters are in the greater Cypress area. And so you have your Bridgeland, which is probably one of the most well-known. Black Horse is kind of an OG in the area that's a little more well-known as well, but has been finished out for a little while now. Not too far from that, you got Town Lake, this is the one that I was telling you about earlier, where you can literally ride up from your neighborhood, from your backyard. If you got the money to be on the water, you can ride up from your backyard and literally go and park at the docks and have some dinner. I've seen it. Is baller. People come up on their personal boat with their family and just hop out and have some dinner. So definitely some cool stuff that I've seen out in that area. As far as things to do, again, you have your movie theaters. The beautiful thing, Mira Mesa is another one of those popular communities out there that is just finishing up, kind of getting close to wrapping up. You just got everything you need. The big high school, Cypress Park High School, is out there, kind of close to 99, so button up against some of the like Bridgeland communities out here on the 99 Grand Parkway. And so there's just a lot that you can really do out here. If we scan up close to the 290 and 99 exit, you're going to see that the Premium Outlet Mall is kind of booming right up against this older commercial that was, our newer commercial that was a part of the Fairfield community on the north of 290. Premium Outlet Mall. So you got your Nike outlet. We have probably the biggest issue between Nike and Adidas outlet. I'm always in some athletic gear personally, and so this is just something that we hit up. There's a lot of stores. It's kind of like I don't know if you've ever been to the La Centera kind of like outlet mall in San Antonio, but it kind of gives that same kind of vibe where there are some parts that are interior, mainly the food court, but the exterior is a breezeway and you can kind of hop in and out of stores. So that's kind of the vibe that you get out there. Always lots of parking, never too crazy to do anything. To say it is usually so hot out here is always shocking that there are so many people that are here. But it is a great place to shop. So definitely a lot of stuff to do as you just kind of scroll around all the communities, because things have been built up and because things have been kind of going for so long in the Cypress area. Everywhere that is pretty much a community of note, they all are going to have their own commercials, their own restaurants, their own sections of things that they do specifically for that area. But what you'll see is there's been a super big push for along this 290 corridor, just kind of as you go out to the area, as you're basically looking to your left and to your right, there's going to be commercial pretty much all up and through this 290 corridor, passing through Copperfield and getting your way out to Cypress. And as you get to some of the more premier kind of exits, so as you get to Fry, as you get to Barker Cypress, as you get to 6, you're going to see the commercial that they've done specifically for those neighborhoods. So definitely a lot to do in Cypress, Texas. Next on the list for the day, we're talking about schools. When it comes to schools, Cypress has you covered. Majority of the communities in Cypress are tied to Cy-Fair ISD, which is one of the most highly rated school districts in Harris County. It usually goes kind of back and forth between Cy-Fair and Katy ISD. And so people that are looking for great schools usually gravitate towards Katy ISD or Cy-Fair when they're looking in that part of the world. And so Cypress, Texas definitely has you covered when it comes to the school department. Cy-Fair is rated an A overall on niche.com. I'll leave a link in the description so you can go and check it out more in depth. Really high on diversity, really high on teacher ratings, clubs and activities. So your kids are going to get a well-rounded and diverse education in the Cy-Fair ISD. And so when it comes to just overall what we're looking at, it is number 7 most diverse districts in Texas. So when people hit me up and they're just like, what's the diversity like? What are the schools like? I just point to the ratings and say, look, we're top 10 for diversity out here and we're rated an A. And so as you kind of look at the schools overall that are associated with the district, you see a lot of A's. That's a far cry from what I see living in the city. A lot of these are A's and B's. When you get kind of in some other school districts, you're going to see that some of these aren't literally anywhere close to this, right? You're going to see way more B's and some more C's and some D's slipping in there. Whereas in Cypher, a bulk of these surrounding especially some of the older premier communities and some of the communities that are coming up right now. So your Bridgelands, your Town Lakes, your Marvitas, some of these that are on the newer side, and you compare that to some of the communities like your Fairfields on the north side or on the older side of Cypress, you're going to see a lot of those schools that you are tied to in those great communities rather are A-rated. And so worrying about education is something that you're not really going to have to think about when you're in the greater Cypress area. For the most part, there are a couple communities that are out here in the greater like Bridgeland area now that they have hopped over to this part of Cypress. They've no longer have that Cypher school district rating, and they're no longer zoned to Cypher. What they've been popped over into, and this is going to continue to happen as Bridgeland and these communities that are kind of on the far west side of 99, they're going to pop on over into these older, more rural school districts. And what these communities that are on the fringe are tied to right now is Waller ISD, which just doesn't have as high of a rating as Cypher. Now, for the communities that this seems to be the biggest issue and the biggest uproar and the biggest cry for is Bridgeland, because a lot of the premier builders out here, you want to be tied to these Bridgeland amenities, and you're paying a premium to get new construction, but you no longer have the privilege of being in Cypher. And so a lot of the people that are reaching out to me now, looking in specifically in the Bridgeland community, they're looking at the school ratings for what Waller is showing, and it's not awful, but it's just not that same A rating as Cypher and the schools that were tied to some of the original communities of Cypress. Hopping on over to just kind of show you what I mean about Waller is not awful in any means, but is not A rated currently, right? And so right now you're going to see it's B plus rated. The diversity is still rated as an A, which is also not bad, but the other portions like college prep, clubs and activities, academics, everything took kind of a little bit of a dip. And that's mainly because those are just older, more rural communities. Also, the diversity is going to take a dip because, again, these were old rural communities. And so for these people that were expecting a different educational experience when they were potentially looking at Cypress originally, if you bought too late and you are now on the far west side of like a Bridgeland, you have now crept on over into Waller ISD, and that just may not be the education that you were planning for your kiddo when you were looking out at Cypress originally. Again, not a bad rating at all compared to most of some of the Houston schools that I see. This is going to be a pretty solid school district. But when it comes to comparing that to what you were originally going to get in Cypher, it's taken a little bit of a dip, at least for the immediate future, while these other schools that are going to be built out in some of these communities and tied to Waller are still under construction. So you're basically putting these newer communities and tying them to older infrastructure and things that were there before these communities kind of built out. And now you're going to get that class clash between what was there before and some of these newcomers that are coming into the area and now being forced and infused into the schools. And so we'll see what that does to the ratings. But as of right now, if you're on the far west sides or on the far ends of Cypress, you're going to kind of bleed over into some other school districts that are a little bit outside of Cypher that aren't going to be as good. And so for some of those other communities that are leaning more towards Tomball, Klein, Champions kind of area in Cypress, you're going to get the benefit of being tied to Tomball, which is one of the highest rated school district in Harris County. And so there's pros and cons on it. When it comes to schools, we're going to have to do a deep dive and see where makes the most sense for you, what neighborhoods fit with your budget, and ultimately we're going to do what's best for you and your family's goals. But at the end of the day, we got to really look at what can you get for the money that you're trying to get? What kind of lifestyle, what kind of diversity, what kind of taxes are you ultimately trying to pay to be associated with either of those school districts, and we'll make the best decision for you and your family. Elephant in the room, the next thing on the agenda, flooding. What's flooding like in Cypress? Like I tell my clients with any part of the greater Houston metro, if it can rain, it can flood. And even if you aren't in a place that has a high rating or a high potential risk for flood, I want you to get flood insurance no matter what. And Cypress is no different. There are places that are going to be better off than others. There's going to be places that are worse off than others. And so it really is, when it comes to flooding in the greater Houston metro in general, it is a very much so case by case situation. I know that I have personally had listings during Harvey that on my street where my listing was, we had no issues, but the immediate surrounding community, next streets over, I'm talking literally walking distance from my listings, they completely flooded. And so you have to check on the house by house specifics, community by community, neighborhood by neighborhood, just to see if that community has had issues in the past or if it has a higher risk to have issues in the future. And as your real estate advisor, there's tools that I have at my disposal that can help point you in the right direction and give you the overall picture and paint a better picture of what that neighborhood, what that street, what that community is likely facing when it comes to a flood risk potential. But at the end of the day, the potential is everywhere. However, we will hop on over right now to the flood map and one of the tools that I have at my disposal as your consultant to show you what I mean. And so this is Cypress. This is what we were just going over. There's some beautiful communities in here that a lot of people love and enjoy. You got Town Lake, you got your Mira Mesa, Marvita, all of these kind of over here. You have Bridgeland. To the north, you have some of the OGs up here. You're going to have your Fairfield, etc., etc. And as you'll see, if I come over here and click on one of the tools that I have as your advisor, you're going to see that a lot of your favorite communities in the greater Cypress area have a flood risk that basically runs right through Cypress. And so it's going to be very case by case, neighborhood by neighborhood, house by house, because as we just even scan in on some of the Bridgeland community, you have some that are in the 500 year, you have some that are closer to this 100 year, you have some that are in the same, almost probably the same section as this part of Bridgeland that is in an X zone. And so it is literally case by case, house by house, community by community in the greater Houston metro, and all communities are like this. And so would you be at a higher risk on a heavy rain or a heavy flood if you were, let's say, in this part of town? Yeah, you would be. Than you would if you were in this part of town, right? There's going to be risk and there's going to be reward in all cases as you kind of get farther out west on some of these more western Bridgeland sections that are developing now. These look to be almost all in some kind of a flood risk compared to some of the ones on the interior of Cypress. And so we're going to have to do a case by case dive to make sure that you're getting something that is in an area that you're comfortable with. We're going to make sure that you got all the data, check out all the things that you need to check out. You know, another thing that we look at on our end, and another thing just in Texas, they didn't do it. They were a bad listing agent. They didn't put their forms in there properly. So let's see if the next one does. But another thing that we have on our end that we check is the seller disclosure. And so combining that with the flood map and the seller's disclosure, we can look at this and say this person has owned this house. They currently don't have flood insurance, which I would never advise, but they currently don't have flood insurance, meaning they are likely not currently required to have flood insurance, which means your risk is a little bit lower. They have not had any issues since Harvey or since owning this home. And so this is probably a great location from a flooding standpoint. They also have never made a claim. So we're going to take the flood maps. We're going to take some FEMA maps outside of this, and we're going to take this seller disclosure, and we're going to look at all of those things and see if this paints the picture that you are in a high flood risk zone or area, or if you aren't. But ultimately, your insurance provider, when you're getting quotes, are going to tell you whether or not you need to have flood insurance in those areas. I'm going to paint the picture from my side of the things that I have access to show you whether or not I think that you need to have flood insurance. However, I'm going to advise it no matter what, no matter where you are, you're going to get flood insurance. I'm in an X zone and I got flood insurance. You're going to have it too. But flooding is case by case here in the greater Houston metro. It is a part, unfortunately, it is a part of living in the greater Houston metro. We just have that flood potential and there's not really much that you can do about it. Next up on the agenda, what's the market like out here in Cypress, Texas? As far as the market goes, Cypress, Texas is doing outstanding, and it has a wide variety of homes at different price points that can fit almost anyone's needs right now. The average single family home sales price for the greater Houston metro is like $400,000 as of the recording of this video. And so I like to use that as a gauge for how friendly it is to first time home buyers and affordability in the area. And luckily right now, Cypress is one of the best areas that you can get in for that 400 and under price point. That's largely due to a couple of the communities that I've reviewed on this channel. Mason Woods being one of the most affordable in the greater Cypress area, as well as Marvita, which is going to be a master plan community that's up and coming out there. I have reviews and tours from both of those videos on this channel. So definitely in a great space right now. And when you compare that to, let's say, a Pearland that only has like 80 listings under 400,000 right now, when you compare that to a Sugarland that I believe has even less, this is definitely one of the better places to be if you have that budget that's at that like $400,000 price point, which seems to be the sweet spot for the greater Houston metro right now. But let's hop into HAR and check a look at what you can get for around 400,000, and then we'll move up in price point. So the state of real estate in Cypress right now for that entry level price point of somewhere around 400,000 compared to the greater Houston metro, you're in good hands. You have a lot of options up here. What I've seen just as a quick scan when I'm looking for clients in the area is they have options that are older all the way up to just a couple years old, when it's a sweet spot where you can get something from like a 2014, 2015 that has a nice tall ceilings, gives you the square footage, and you're not paying the super premium that you would pay if you were still trying to get, let's say, into a Bridgeland, or if you were still trying to get into a Town Lake. You can kind of get the best of both worlds, where you're very close to the premium outlet mall, you're close to the shopping and eateries and all those things, but you just have to sacrifice a little bit on the age to get the square footage that you want. You get location, you get price, and you get looks, right? But within the confines of your budget, that's all we got to work with. And so if you want more house, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have to go a little bit older. If you want to stay at a certain price, we are going to have to go a little bit older, a little bit more work, or a little bit smaller, or we're going to have to change the location and get in a community that you may not necessarily be on the top of your list. So we might be moving out of a Bridgeland, we might be moving out of a Town Lake, and we might be moving into a Marvita. You're still going to have a great community, still going to have somewhere great to call home, somewhere that you'll be proud of, but we're going to have to sacrifice on some of those levels. As we jump in here and we look at some of the communities that you can buy in under 400,000 entry level price point, this is going to be in that Black Horse. And so this is one of those communities that kind of popped up around the same time in the early stages of when like a Town Lake and all those were kind of being developed. And so it's definitely one of those opportunities where you got opportunities all over it. It's just depending on what's most important to you. Is it the square footage? Is it the premier community? Is it the amenities of the community? Or is it your overall price point? All of those are going to dictate, but you currently at this moment have a bunch of options under 400,000 out here in Cypress. Now, when you step it up to that more luxury price point, when you get up into that $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 price point, this is where I think personally that the Cypress area really shines, because you have a lot of new construction communities as well as established communities that have great amenities that you can afford once you get to that price point. So your Dunham points that I just did on the channel. You're going to see the top end of like the Marvita. So the biggest properties in that 32 to 3,500 square feet plus, you're going to get that once you get to that price point. You're going to be in Bridgeland. You're going to be in Town Lake, all of which I've done reviews on in this community. You're going to definitely have a wide variety of options as you get to that more luxury price point, and they're going to be newer options that come with a ton of amenities that just aren't readily available in other parts of the greater Houston metro. So once you get up to that big dollar price point, when you're in that luxury price point, Cypress is definitely one of the best locations that you can ever have in the greater Houston metro, because our planned communities out here are just heavy hitters. You're going to have, you know, the lazy rivers, you're going to have the boatable lakes, you're going to have the walking trails, you're going to have the gyms, you're going to have all the on-site cafes. You're going to have so much stuff when it comes to amenities and places that you can live, especially once you get up into that luxury price point. And then you still have at your fingertips everything that is off of the 99 and 290 corridor. And so you'll really start to feel the benefits of being at that luxury price point better than you would in most other communities when you get out to Cypress, Texas. But Cypress, Texas is not perfect, and Cypress, Texas has probably one of the biggest cons that you could have in the greater Houston metro, and that is that it has extremely high taxes. Property taxes in Cypress compared to other parts of Houston, compared to other suburbs, Cypress, Texas has some of the highest property taxes in the metro. And so even though it has some of these beautiful communities that I love, even though it has all of these amenities, even though it has all these opportunities, when you compare that the property taxes on many of these communities are going to be, even in your older ones, are going to be in the high 2s, almost 3s. And as you get into these more premier luxury new construction communities, all of these are going to be like 3.4 to 3.6. And so if you have that entry level price point of around 400,000, you have a tax rate that is over 3, you're going to pay about $1,000 a month just for property taxes. Now, a large portion of that is for the schools that you're paying for. So that ding, 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 that school that is such a positive, that Cy-Fair ISD that everybody knows, loves, and wants to be in, you're paying a premium for that in most of these communities. Or if you get to a Waller, you're still going to pay a fairly high tax compared to Houston, where my tax rate is like a 2.3. You're going to be starting out like 2.9 and above, 2.8 and above for most communities that are even remotely new in the greater Cypress area. And so only you can tell me whether or not that's worth it. Only you can tell me whether paying $1,000 a month for taxes in that area is going to be okay for you. It's a great community. I love it. It's definitely one of my favorite, but that has to be one of the biggest drawbacks about moving to Cypress, is that the property taxes out there are outrageous in more communities than not. So how did I do? Did I scare you away from wanting to move to Cypress, Texas? If so, that was not the goal. I want to just give you the good, the bad, the ugly, everything that you need to know about moving to Cypress, Texas, so you can know whether or not it's a great move for you and your family. I think it has outstanding potential. Is one of the places that is at the top of the list for me and my family. We love the amenities. We love the things that you can do out there. We love the ratings of the schools. All of those things are important to us. But one of those things that gives us pause and gives some of my clients that are looking in the area pause is that the price of entry for new construction and luxury is kind of up there, and the property taxes are kind of high. But let me know what that means to you. I love Cypress, Texas. I think it's at the top of my list still, but what is it for you? Call, text, email, hit the comment section down below and let me know if I did a great job on this video of convincing you that Cypress, Texas should be at the top of your list, or if you're just like, nah, bro, I'm good on Cypress altogether. Either way, let me be that resource to you. I look forward to hearing from you, and I hope you have an amazing day.